year. Now, today we are actually approaching the Hilula of Rabbi Sasson Kaduri Z'tl, very famous rabbi of his time. Here we are, happen to be actually towards the end of the month of ER. He was a head rabbi in Iraq of his day, very, very prominent position, and especially during the time period, he was head rabbi. He was in the rabbinate in Iraq, respectively. It was a time period where there was more than a couple of 100,000 Jewish people actually living in Iraq at that point in time. There was famous various different yeshivot at that stage in time, especially the famous yeshivat Bet Zilka, which we've spoken about on various occasions before, and he very much would become a great rabbi in his time. Now, I believe his Hilula actually happens to be on the 29th of ER, or approximately at that, during these days in of itself. Very, very great rabbi. Let's explore a few highlights of the great rabbi's life. Now, he was born, as we said before, on the 14th of October in the year 1886, passed away 24th of May, 1971. He'd gone to become the head of the congregation and the head rabbi of the Jewish community in Bavel, which was also popularly known as the Bashi, obviously in Iraq, modern day Iraq over there. He also representing pretty much the whole of Babylonian Jewry. This would be for a 40-year period, a long, substantial time. In 1920, he was appointed to become a Dayan. At that stage in time, he would have been about 34. At that stage in time, would be even number 2 in the Bet Din, headed by Rabbi Yehezkel Eliah, I think another rabbi we've mentioned about on various occasions before in this series. And upon his death, Rabbi Eliah, he would be appointed as a head of the Jewish court there in 1923. And then I think it come up 1927, he would be elected chief rabbi of the Jewish community, a position he would hold for a staggering 40, close to about nearly 50 years, about 48 years in himself, till 1971 when he passed away. Now, as we said before, he would lead the Iraqi Jewish community at the time when they peaked at that stage. I think especially, and then towards a decline also. From the beginning of the monarchy in Iraq under King Faisal, I think the first, until Saddam Hussein, I think there was around 200,000 people at its peak at that point in time in Iraq. We're talking about before the Medinat Israel was formed. And towards the end, there was only about 3,000 at the time period he had passed away. Now, much can be said with regards to that position. He had huge amounts of political talents, especially this would help in continuing working relations with Iraqi authorities and protecting the Jewish community at the same time. He tried to expand as much as possible, let's say, freedom of action and for Jewish people to work, and to freedom of religious practice, to enable a Torah and religious life. He had good relations with the authorities, and they highly respected him as an important religious, let's say, dignitary. He would serve as a mediator between them and various other political personalities just in that specific area in of itself. Now, he would be, so let's explore his biography a little bit more. He would be ordained as a rabbi while he was younger, and he would become a darshan and a posek, a rabbi that will render various different Jewish law in of itself. And he had a very great, let's say, broad depth of Jewish education. He would get all his wisdom from the famous yeshivat, Midrash Bet Zilka. This is a yeshiva which was headed by Rav Abdullah Somech in its, let's say, main day in of itself. And he was considered in the spectrum to be a little bit more lenient, let's just say, maybe compared to other leaders around in that specific vicinity. And so he was, I think he would he'd take on the rabbinate for 3 time periods, 2 other time periods. I think he would leave like the head position, but I think that was in the year 1929 for some reason or another. I think there was a different of opinion with regards to Zionism in Iraq, and I think also in early 1940s he would take a short break, but I think he would be in the position, and I think with the help of the authorities especially, they decided for him to continue to head the community. So seemingly the people wanted him and the authorities wanted him. He would, let's just say, I think, give the green light. One of the things was to allow people like the younger generation, as well as learning Torah, maybe go into the medical field, social work, engineering, develop more secular opportunities at that stage in time. He thought that it would be a light, let's just say, to the nations, and that they're going to see people working, especially from the Jewish community in of itself. But obviously, he would want everyone to have a substantial Jewish education. I think, in the year 1940s, a lot was going on at that point in time, turbulent time, especially with the Iraqi authorities, and he tried to keep good relations in order to protect the Jewish community. And God forbid, there was unfortunately some anti-Semitism creeping in at that point in time. He had connections, I think, with the Zionist organizations in Iraq. And I think there was issues with the Iraqi government at that point in time. Obviously the Iraqi government was not so for Zionism, especially during the mid-1930s period. And they wouldn't have liked it, the authorities, his connection with, let's just say, the Zionist organizations. They might have seen it as treason, the Iraqis would have, against the authorities. So he had to maintain a balance of how he appeared outside and what maybe he would do within the realms in of itself. Now, he actually held that, obviously wanting to move to Eretz Israel, he would stay in Iraq, and his goal was that he would be the last. He wanted everyone to move to Israel, and then he would follow suit. But sadly, I think he passed away in May the 24th, 1971. This was 23 years after the formation of the state. At that point in time, there was only about 3,000 Jewish people that were remaining in Iraq. So pretty much it was dramatic decline of the Jewish community in Iraq at that point in time. Now more things can be said with regards to that period. I think most Iraqi Jews during this time period would leave Iraq during the Operation Ezra and Nehemiah. He would continuously, though, work on behalf of the Jewish community. He would have connection with President Abdel Karim Qasim, and I think he would try to combat anti-Semitism. Rav Kaduri would. He would try and enable the Jewish community to actually study in the various different universities, and wanted them to, let's just say, have every chance to make a good parnasa and become the brightest, let's just say, especially in the main education sphere in of itself. And much more can be said about it. I think he tried to transfer the city's oldest Jewish cemetery to a specific neighborhood also. Now, I believe after there was the assassination of Abd al-Karim Qasim in 1963, situation of the Jewish community would at that stage start to deteriorate. And I think it was after the Six-Day War in 1967. Obviously, there was a defeat of the Arab states in war. The Jewish community were first target of, let's just say, the terrorist regime of Saddam Hussein, who I think was coming inside the realm of the head of the country over there. He would begin with false accusations against the Jews, which unfortunately were anti-Semitically, was accompanied by imprisonments and even executions as bad as that. I believe even he personally suffered huge anti-Semitism. One of his family members did. I think a few months after the Six-Day War, Rabbi Sasson Kaduri's son, Rav Shaul, was imprisoned by the authorities anti-Semitically. And the authorities did not give, let's say, any information about his whereabouts, but eventually he would be released. And it was reported that he would suffer, unfortunately, his son, Shaul, very, very much, a lot of torture, and was able to escape from Iraq and settle eventually in London. Rav Shaul was. And I think there's testimony of Rav Shaul's son, Zuhair Sasson, within regards to this in a specific place. Now, I believe Rav Kaduri passed away, as we said before, in the year 1971. A state funeral was held for him in Baghdad. I think the Iraqi Minister of Information paid a condolence visit to his home and approached the family, asked, let's say, for the rabbi's traditional attire to display inside the museum over there. The family gave, I think, him a new robe, and Rav Kaduri's, I think, original clothes would be actually go through Iran all the way to Israel later on, and is now actually, I believe, in display in the main Israel Museum, if I'm not mistaken. But he was a very famous rabbi of his time. He had close connections with other great rabbis, especially famous Rabbi Ezra Dangor, Rabbi Ben Sion Meir Chai Uziel, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Maimon, who was, I think, one of the founders of the Mizrahi movement. He had a connection with, and many other great rabbis. He was 84 years of age at the time he passed away. He passed away 54 years ago from time of recording, May 24th, 1971. 71, a great rabbi in his time. And I recommend everyone to learn much more within regards to the great Chacham. Now, friends, we're a community here. We're learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear. If you descend from any of the great Chachamim we are speaking about, please let me know. I would love to hear more. Please share these videos to other people if you feel other people are interested. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel now. We're nearing 7,000 members. A brilliant, let's say, achievement in of its time. We've spoken here about the video of the great Iraqi rabbi, Rabbi Sasson Kaduri Z'tl. So please, everyone, subscribe, take care, and have a good night.